Tune in for the activation required to make an impact through your purpose at work and in the world. From sales and marketing executive to now an international speaker, life and business coach, and media host, hosted by Melissa D. White, the activation specialist. That's me. We're getting real about personal and professional moments with the world's top leaders and influencers to help you activate your voice and amplify your story. Now, let's get activated. Hello, and welcome back for another episode of the Activation Hour. I'm your host, Melissa D. White, and you're tuned in as we continue our series, Becoming. This season is especially important to me, coming off of the heels of season 2, which was our season of unlearning. Understand that before you can become your highest potential, there were some things we had to go through in last season with all of our episodes, but I promise you it's all worth it when you become all that you anticipate and hope and dream that you'll be. Well, here's another level to that. I would be remiss if I didn't have a very candid conversation about women and the struggles we face in trying to reach our optimal potential. I know we make it look easy. Yeah, we're past Mother's Day and we're beyond Women's International Day, but I think every day is a good time to really understand what it takes to have a voice and advocate and activate women. There's no other person I can think of to share this conversation with than Delphine Carter, the founder of Boulo Solutions out of Birmingham, Alabama. She serves women all over through their mission, which is professional achievement without compromise. Let's look at some of the facts here. Right now, as the world's beginning to open up, yes, we're returning to work, but we anticipate, unfortunately, a mass corporate exodus. It doesn't have to be that way if only we would look at the flexible opportunities for women to return to the workforce, empowered with options on how to use their gifts and talents as a solution. This is particularly important for women who are in marginalized groups, such as Black women of color and those who may have just very unfortunate circumstances, whether it's transportation, economic hardships, and many other barriers that women face, lack of childcare, and the list goes on and on. Now, you understand why we got to have this conversation? I think you're ready to get activated with me as we hear from CEO Delphine Carter, the founder of Boulo Solutions, a career matching service that keeps women in the workplace with flexible opportunities, like I just said. She's a product and technology leader with over 10 years experience in product development roles, and she was able to fund Boulo's $500,000 seed stage while working, and get this, while raising her kids during a pandemic. I think she's more than capable to contribute to this conversation, and she's absolutely contributed to the world while advocating for women at work. So let's get activated with our guest today, Delphine Carter. Welcome to the Activation Hour, Delphine. How are you?
I'm doing great, especially after that intro. You got me so fired up when you brought up childcare.
Come on. It's all things women's empowerment, girl power. I love when I can just feed off of the energy of my guest and you hit that target. I was like, yes. You emailed me back. You said, we're going to have fun. I said, oh yeah, we are. So welcome.
Oh, thanks. This is great.
Yeah. Your story, I must say, is an incredible story of resilience and just working a plan, but you didn't do it for selfish gain. You had a very strategic mission. What was your activation hour, if you will, or what prompted you to collect the seed money and go forth with Boulo Solutions?
Yeah, it was we've got pivotal moments in our life that are thrown at us,
Mm-hmm.
and you decide you can do good with that time or with that situation, or maybe do something unhealthy. So I had been, like you said, so I've been a product manager. I've built products. And all the time I would have maybe a need for a copywriter or a marketer or somebody to
Mm-hmm.
help me run the project. And I would go to my people team and say, hey, can you find me anybody? And everybody looked like the exact same. And I was just craving a
Mm.
profile that looked different. On the weekends, I'd go to my kids' games on the ball fields, and the
Mm-hmm.
perfect person was sitting next to me. And she was like, I can't get a job. Like, nobody will hire me. I've got all
Mm.
these skills. At the same time, I was going through a divorce.
Mm.
And so I find myself with time on my hands when the kids are enjoying their time with their dad. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I could start exploring this and figuring out why these women have to make this choice of the on ramp or of the off ramp,
Yeah.
and then why they can never get back in. And maybe I can make a difference. My career has, the only thing I've ever been good at is working, is what I say. And so I was always too scared to step out, but it
Wow.
was chaos to working, trying to raise two kids. And I know why people leave. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it has to be that way. So I took the bad opportunity of missing my kids, and I figured, well, I'll just start learning about what's going on here. I started working with somebody on this project, and then we just went for it. I prayed a lot. I was waking up at 3:30 every morning, couldn't go back to
Mm.
sleep. And finally I was like, okay, I feel like you're telling me something, and I'm never going to sleep again
Wow.
unless I commit. And so we committed, and I've got a great team, and we've just been fighting ever since for what we believe.
Oh man. That is so powerful and transformational. It was, you said something interesting. You said, I've always just been good at working. And oftentimes, right, we discount ourselves and say, well, this is all I know, and don't realize it's what you know where your value lies. So it was your own experience that opened the door for you to have your own business. That's so crazy.
Yeah, it's funny. You look back and things come full circle. I realize, like, I look at all the steps that I've taken in my career, and I
Mhm.
realize, okay, this is why I have. I'm not your typical entrepreneur. I'm late 40s, two kids, single, like that's not your guy walking around the innovation blocks in these communities. And so,
Mhm.
but I felt like it needed to happen now. And now is when I had the tools to really put this in place, to be able to articulate the problem, and to be able to really be an advocate for these women with hiring managers and with businesses.
Wow. I love that. Now's the right time. Thank you for being honest about the conditions, the circumstances around it, because you always hear these glory stories. Like, yeah, I was here and I rose to the top. No, that it doesn't get realer than that, right?
No, it wasn't a glory story.
It doesn't get realer than that. And I think what happens, oh, this is so great. I love that we're going down this path of talking about age in that next chapter. And it's like you're thinking, okay, I'm in my 40s or whatever the career and my circumstances are, ending a chapter in marriage. I'm just trying to raise my kids and do good for them. But to hear that, yes, wherever you are, your skills are necessary and you can start wherever. I mean, we hear that. Like J.K. Rowling, I think, wrote Harry Potter in her 40s after being a mom on welfare. And then, I could tell story after story after story about women like that. But thank you for that transparency. Because people need to hear it. So you have the idea, you started. Where did you start? How do you even know to start a staffing agency for women to help them curate flex work into their lives?
Yeah. And so it what I knew I wanted to build was something that would make this matching process very efficient. There's some wonderful systems and solutions that are out there today that do a similar thing. And I was like, I think I can build this. And I
Mm-hmm.
think there's an appetite for these women. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't rationalize why a business would not want to take advantage of somebody who's got a lot of expertise, who has incredible natural traits that come with being a female and a mom, and comes with bringing diversity to the team. And
Right.
so I call it like duct tape and paper clips. So we started by just going to, and I think this is an important thing for women to think about, by just going to my network and saying, do you have any jobs that are open? And will you let us try? Just give us a shot. And then we started having neighborhood coffees where we would tell women, this is what we want to try and do. If you would like to get back to work, we're going to try and make this different, and go ahead and fill out our profile, and then we'll start matching you. And that's how it all began, was really in people's living rooms with an Excel spreadsheet, and just faking it, just trying it.
No, I love it. You bring a whole new meaning to the whole fake it till you make it.
Oh, it was fake it till you make it.
But you weren't, you had your feet to the ground though. Like you weren't faking it behind the scenes and acting, like you were doing the work. And I think that's where people get stuck, Delphine, is we think it has to look a certain way. Where you said, no, we're going to go to our active audience of women. We're going to create from what we already have. I love that. You went straight to the people, to the living rooms, and created like, hey, what do you need? Where are you trying to be? Like a matchmaking type of situation.
Well, that is. It felt like kind of the old, like a grandmother in the room, like I've got someone for you. So, but it was very much, I think what holds women are, we've got a little bit of a perfectionist mindset. Hopefully that's changing for a lot of us. But if you wait until the conditions are perfect, if you wait until you've got like the money to build the website and the platform or whatever, it's going to be you'll talk yourself out of it along the way. And so the best way is to start lean, do the research, and then by the time you've got the money to get this going, you're set. You know exactly what you need to do, and you can start with an educated background. And then your language changes. Everything starts just kind of fitting and flowing.
I love that. Start lean and do the research. A lot of times we think research, and for some it may be, hey, go get another degree or go get certified and whatever. Your research, it was field research. It's like, let me get out there with the people that either A, I'm serving and placing, or B, I'm serving as clients to find the right candidate. How long did you do that? How long was that period of R&D before hitting the ground with Boulo and actually matching and getting that going?
It probably went like that for about 6 months. I had a co-founder who was with me at the time, and she and I just kind of, I was working full time. She was, had not been working and was trying to get back into things. She was like the example of the woman who was such a badass, hope I can say it, who was such an amazing person and couldn't find a job. She started 2 chapters of Girls on the Run. Like anybody should have taken her. And so probably for about 6 months, we were Excel spreadsheets. We started making a little bit of revenue, and then we're like, okay, well, let's invest in a couple of these systems that are out there that, are not that expensive. And then after a year and a half, we were full blown, had over 1,000 women on the platform, had matched, I guess at that point, over 150 jobs. And we just had enough to take to investors and say, what do you think? Do you believe in this as much as we believe in this? And this is our dream for Boulo in the big scale. Will you go on this journey with us? And there's nothing more affirming than hearing people say, I believe that moms are women and moms are an under-tapped resource, and that businesses and our economy will thrive by helping this ecosystem get created. And so they said, yes, we're in it. And it was great.
Wow. So there's a very specific and well-crafted mission that you set out to accomplish. Tell us that mission and how it resonates. Where does that come from? What's the heart of Boulo?
So we want to be, Boulo is a career mobility platform with the purpose of helping women stay in and return to the workforce. And we do that by matching them with full-time, part-time, temp, or project. Flexible jobs. Now it's got to be flexible. Those are the only jobs on our platform. And flexibility can be defined by hours, location, or just a culture that says, Melissa may need to run out to the dentist, but I'm pretty sure she's going to reach her goals. So I don't really care when she comes back, or she can go finish off at home or whatever, where you're not just micromanaged for how long your butt is sitting in a seat in a cube. And so our whole purpose was to work with businesses that we thought were a little more innovative, really believed that women could have a great influence in their offices. They believed in diversity, bringing diverse thought to the table, and that people should be measured by goals and not by seeing them sitting there.
That's good. So a lot has transpired during the period that you were starting up in a pandemic. How have the recent events and beyond COVID, beyond the pandemic, even in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion being a big topic of discussion, how has all of that impacted women in the workforce as you and your company aim to be a solution?
It was almost the perfect storm of all of those events coming together. Was the perfect storm of awareness for Boulo. So yes, COVID took almost 2 million women out of the workforce. For every 2.2 men that return, only 1 woman has returned so far to date. We still have about a third across the nation, about a third of 4th and 8th graders are still remote. They're still virtually learning.
Yeah.
And so it impacted our moms significantly to where they had to pull themselves out. At the same time, we had this amazing awareness with the businesses that realized, God, we've been doing it wrong. Like, yes, we say that we really appreciate diversity, but we're not going to slow down our hiring process to make sure that we find candidates that might be outside of our network. We're not going to make entry roads into other networks to make a conscientious attempt at finding diversity. And so I think, I mean, you hope it would happen a different way, but I think a lot of what happened this summer made companies realize we are committed to this and we're doing it. We got our growth in jobs is ridiculous. We've got so many people who are searching for us, who are searching for diversity, and then find us from California, from Idaho, from across the country. And it is, I think it's just, back to your word, it's an awakening that finally happened. And finally, I truly believe that now there is teeth to these initiatives in businesses.
How so? How do you believe that businesses will now shift to, as you said, just open up, like you said before, they may not have really slowed down to restructure for these practices? How have you seen that change?
Because I think they realize that if they want to stay in business and sell their products, there are expectations out there that you will do good as a company and that you will have everybody represented in your business. And so I think it's going to be people's purchasing power. And I really hope it is. I hope we all will look at what we're doing and say, well, that doesn't feel right.
Right.
Let's go. Right. Let me go somewhere else.
That's
so
good.
I think it's the pressure of the consumer.
That's changed. Good. That corporate social responsibility or just human responsibility.
That's what it's changed. It's now human responsibility. Somebody said the other day, what do you think has changed the most during COVID? And this woman was so smart. And she said, it used to be that I would see you on the street and I'd be like, how are you doing? And then just keep on walking. And now when I see you on the street, I go, how are you doing? Like, no, really, how are you doing? Yeah. And so we're maybe a little more intentional about our connections and about how are you actually doing versus the networking. How are you doing? And so maybe there's more caring. Maybe I'm living on a beautiful little cloud, but I really think it's different. I mean, just our numbers, the number of jobs that are coming in where they're being very intentional about who they want to join their business is beautiful.
I deeply agree with what you're saying. And I love how you show the tone and the variance between how you're doing and like, how are you doing? I think, and here's the thing, being honest in our answers now so that we can truly support, connect, and advocate. Because it's hard for someone to be an advocate if they don't truly empathize and understand the help you need so that they can usher you into the right rooms. Talk about that, being an advocate when people finally give the answer to that question. Like, Delphine, I'm not doing okay. What do you do as a woman?
Yeah, I think as a woman, you need to not sound great, like everything's wonderful.
Yeah.
We need to be more, we need to find our voices and stand confident in our voice. Women come to our platform and they say, I've just been a mom the past 3 years, so I'm not really sure what I can bring. And we're like, whatever, like you negotiated smart boards across your school system. Like
Yeah.
somebody was going to get paid to do that if you hadn't. And so it's giving these women the confidence to have the voice. This is a story I think that's very close to your heart. If you are working in a full-time job and you are going crazy everywhere on two wheels, you feel like you're not succeeding at anything, find your voice and ask your manager for the option of flexibility. And I think I'd love for you to share that story that I've heard of you, because it is exactly what
Yeah.
most women are experiencing right now.
So I love this. And this is why I love the pre-show. If you guys are subscribed and you're a regular listener and part of my Activation Nation, you've heard this story. It pays to subscribe and be behind the scenes, guys. So Delphine, this is where the roles switch. I'm getting interviewed. The activator is getting activated. Delphine asked me, she said, about my story. And I said, well, honestly, I'm the population of women that you're talking about, because some of you may or may not know, I'm a caregiver to my elderly grandmother. And so generationally, we support and, try to cover each other. But here's the thing, we're in a pandemic, and, it's like, do I bring a caregiver in a home or not? There's fear around that. How do I make sure I bring balance to my family and share responsibilities, caring for our loved one? We made a commitment not to put her in a nursing home. Well, we heard horror stories during the pandemic of what was going on in senior assisted living facilities. And so I went in and had my career has been a series of tough conversations, radical transparency, radical candor. And I just told my boss, like, this is a struggle for me. And at the same time, I've always been open with my employer. I have an agency I'm growing. Yes, I'm committed to my work when I'm here, but this is why the Activation Hour is purpose at work and in the world, because I believe I can show up as the blend. And it makes me a better employee, actually, because I had other deep, rich experiences to bring back.
You're fulfilled.
I'm fulfilled, and therefore I perform better, and therefore I have a skill set from outside that I'm bringing inside, and it works. And I learned a new term in that process too, Delphine, called an intrapreneur. I was like, that's a thing where you are an entrepreneur who works as well full time, whether that's to gather capital for your idea, whether it's your own research and learning on the job experience, or simply, hey, I enjoy truly doing both. And I had such a gracious employer. I have an employer where they said, you know what, let's figure it out. And it'll work until it doesn't work, and we'll revisit it. But it was only because me and my big mouth, Delphine. Shout out to the girls who, they told you, like, you're too loud, you're too vocal, you're too this. Well, those are the women who advocate for themselves. So we talk about advocating. I had to advocate and say, this is what I need. I hope you can work with me. I want you to work with me. If you can't, I may have to go find something else. It takes, I'm not going to say fearless. You have to do it in the face of fear. Like, I might really lose my job or my opportunity. So now don't go to work on Monday and say, Melissa and Delphine said, the disclaimer. Okay. But that's been my life, where I understood my contribution, but I also was gracious enough. Hey, if whatever it is, if I'm not the right fit, I'm gracious enough to find the right fit. If I am that, can we negotiate my terms? That's been the most powerful thing. But it took a boss. And again, I want to be clear. It took a leader, a CEO, who was understanding of my circumstances and willing.
And I think that's even more prevalent now. So I believe she was a Speaker of the House who said, work lives and personal lives are inextricably linked. I can't even say the word.
Yes.
If one falls, so does the other. And so I think a lot of people saw that in your face, cats walking across keyboards, kids doing whatever in the background. And so I think having that conversation of, what I've been up to, how difficult it's been. I have contributed this entire time. What do you say? Would you really rather lose me in this market? Because, by the way, it is incredibly hard to find good talent right now. There is a labor shortage as odd as that sounds, there is a labor shortage.
There is.
And so now really is your time to find that voice and advocate for yourself. Our country needs to start appreciating caregivers a lot more. A lot of us are part of the sandwich generation where you're taking care of parents and kids.
Yes.
But we still are sound contributors and valuable contributors. Even dads do not, like, if I hear somebody sneer because some guy took his full paternity leave, I'm going to lose it. Like, we need to appreciate dads that want to be involved in their kids' lives and support them as well. So it's all caregiving, really. Boulo stands for all caregiving, being appreciated to where you don't have to give up the fact that you're doing that caregiving and yourself.
That's so good. That's so good. That's so good. Oh, that's so powerful. I want to really learn more about the culture of Boulo and how you support women. What are some of the things you're doing internally as a company and a team to cultivate the women who you're looking to place, like the training? How are you nurturing their skill set and helping them see, yes, you have value, you have an amazing skill set, even from your position as a stay-at-home mom or whatever the case may be?
So our one of the things we realized when we were researching was that if you've got a nonlinear career, so you didn't graduate in marketing and do marketing for 12 years, then you will not surface on Indeed, LinkedIn, and ZipRecruiter. When people do the searches, you're just not going to come up, even though you're incredibly valuable. So our premise was, what if we showed these hiring managers the full person? So all of Melissa. And that is like a cover letter that grabs the hiring manager emotionally. And then they see a timeline that might look a little different. So that was our premise. So we went into it, and the onboarding experience for Boulo asks you, tell me about some of your challenges. Tell me when you've really succeeded. Tell me the last time you learned technology. What did that feel like? How did you go about it? And so now we're starting to layer on top of the resume. We call it our 360-degree profile. On top of the resume, you get to go into detail about who you are and how you pursue things and what you're passionate about. And it has a big effect. The hiring managers tell us, I feel like I already had my first interview and I want Melissa. Like, I want to interview her. Yeah. And so it's just really broken that barrier. When you are a hiring manager and you get 100 resumes just coming through the system, you get numb to the fact that they're humans. So our premise is we're going to layer the human on top so that you go back to realizing that they give a lot more than just these little blurbs on their resume. And that is the start of us advocating for the women and giving them their voice, giving them a place for their voice. We also have phone calls with them to make sure that, or if they're stumped on a question, they're having trouble finding that voice, that we'll talk them through it and help them think through examples of where they contributed in that way. Because sometimes you just need to look at things a little bit differently to realize you gained a new skill, even if you weren't getting paid.
I love that. I have a phrase for that, Delphine. I call it showing up as your full self.
That's exactly it.
And that's how we got here. If you're a part of Activation Nation, that's our commitment, is to be the blend. Be the blend. I don't want to leave pieces of myself at home, pieces of myself at work, pieces of myself in the community. Otherwise, I'm a scattered person. And it takes the totality, the full sum of who I am, to be a maximum contributor to either one of those spaces.
So somebody asked me the other day, what is the number one thing that you ask hiring managers? And I told them, ask them how their kids are. Or what would you tell hiring managers? And my thing is if you were a manager, ask people how their kids are. Because giving them that freedom to say, okay, we can acknowledge that I have kids. We can acknowledge that, like, there's this when I pull out of this parking lot, like, there's this whole other me that comes about. And that because a lot of times women especially, and even some men, feel like they can't really talk about the family time and how much fun they had going hiking or going to play at a lake or whatever it is with their children. And so once you start seeing the blend, you feel more appreciated at work, you feel more understood, and you contribute more. So for anybody who's in a managerial position, a leadership position, ask people like, what's your hobby? Who are you? How are your kids? How's your spouse, partner, whatever? Just to get that blend.
Yeah. And truly listen to the answer. And truly listen and acknowledge. That is the fastest way for a leader to earn trust. The fastest way. You and I were, yeah. Go ahead.
I think that's the biggest key to equity, right? And to inclusion. Like to be able, maybe it's more inclusion. Well, it is more inclusion. So that's the key to inclusion, is if you feel like I'm hearing what Melissa does, you and I are different. But if you feel like I'm like really interested in how your world's going and I truly listen, I think that's when everybody starts feeling included. When I'm sitting at the table as the only female and you're not asking me about anything that's personal, or then I kind of feel like I've got to be real quiet about what happens in that other world.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and aside from kids, because you asked me an interesting question, I want to frame this for everybody, right? Because I want to include, here's the inclusion part, like you said, beyond women who are mothers. You said, hey, are you a mother? I've learned to answer differently because biologically I'm not. But I said, yeah, but I care for a lot of kids through my nonprofit work. And you said, huh. So that deepens the conversation when that goes back to activating your voice, right? I could easily have bowed out and said, well, no, I'm not a mom, and feel and exclude myself from that category. However, a part of activating your voice is don't disqualify yourself with a no. Insert yourself with, well, no, but, or yes, however, I do XYZ. It's all a part of, let me speak to and play to the areas where I do have value. That's also a part of advocating for yourself, Delphine.
I love that. I absolutely love that. In fact, I want our team to start talking to women about that too. And it's don't feel like that question was so direct. Help give them, they're trying to learn more, help give them another view of you, that other side. I love that.
Another view of you. And I get the same thing, like I'm not married. I don't have a spouse or partner. So people typically will assume a woman of a certain age, oh, well, you're married, you have kids. Tell me about your family, your spouse. So they may say, hey, tell me about your spouse, your husband. Well, actually, let me tell you about my family. I'm reframing for including myself, not excluding myself.
Oh my God, Melissa, that is like,
right.
Yes.
Mind blown emoji, revolutionary.
That is.
It's all in our own language. So oftentimes, here's where we tread lightly, right? In today's world, it's like, well, I'm offended because they asked me that and I'm not married. I choose to take the role of, you know what? I would be offended if you don't acknowledge the things in my life that do matter. Right? That it would be different if once I state, actually, I'm glad you asked about that. I partner with my mother to care for my grandmother, and they are my world. You want to see pictures? Like when people are pulling out pictures of their kids and all this, I'm pulling out pictures of kids at my nonprofit and my 84-year-old grandma. So my story, and so now who stands out in the room? It's pretty different from everything else. So as women, we have to learn inclusionary practices if we're expecting others to include us in the conversation.
Inclusionary practices. That's great.
Inclusionary language.
Yeah. And I think that comes with confidence too. To say you really care, because I think some women say they don't want to hear from me. I've just been doing this. I've just been a mom. I've just been single. They don't want to hear from me. They don't want to hear my story. But when you're like, my life is pretty cool. This is an amazing life. I had some great times with my kids. I taught them a lot.
Right.
And have confidence in the path you chose and where you are today, then you can start with that.
Have confidence in the path you chose and stand on that. Powerful. That's an activation moment if I've ever heard one, Delphine.
I
Have
love those.
confidence in that. Yeah, don't shrink back and be ashamed of the decision you made. Yeah, I had a kid. Yeah, I might be divorced. I might be a single mom. Who cares? That is your qualifying factor. That's your qualifying factor. This is so good. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, guys, if you're enjoying this episode, please show Delphine some love. I've dropped her information below. Go check out Boulo Solutions on Twitter, IG, anywhere on social media because
Don't do
these
it
are
on Twitter.
not not on Twitter. She
We're
said not
really
on
bad at
Twitter.
Twitter.
That's what I told you. IG, Facebook, their YouTube channel is great.
LinkedIn.
Make
Yep.
sure either way you go to their website because the mission spoke. It leaped off of the website at me. And I said, they speak my language. Those are my people. So make sure you go check out Boulo Solutions and learn more. Don't go anywhere. If this information has been good to you, don't be stingy. Hit that share button and share it with someone else. Invite them to the conversation. Don't go anywhere. We want to show some love to our sponsor, the HR plug for this episode and their new book. So thank you to LaShawn Davis, supporter of the show. And guys, we'll be right back with CEO Delphine Carter of Boulo Solutions on advocating for women at work. I am Imperfectly Essential, Workplace Declarations Affirming Your Value as Leaders by author, coach, and the HR plug, LaShawn Davis, who set out to give us daily affirmations and declarations. This impactful collection of affirmations highlight how we're imperfectly essential in the workplace and to remind yourself of the value you bring to your organization. Words, they can be simple, yet so powerful. Imagine reading and writing words to help get you through the workday and make you feel empowered. When you begin to feel the weight of your work wearing you down, recite these declarations and have a pep talk with yourself. Remember, I am imperfectly essential. Follow the HR plug and get your copy today. Activation Coaching International, where we're on a mission to activate 1,000 coaches, speakers, and business owners to monetize, repurpose, and package your message, allowing you to attract your ideal clients and build platforms using your voice that generate multiple streams of income. We've helped countless coaches achieve optimal results to get the training and support they need for a successful coaching practice and speaking business. Become a certified life and business coach to enhance your skills and serve at mass. Learn how to build a platform that attracts your ideal clients through Activation Coaching International. Apply today. All right, we're back with our conversation today. Oh, it was just getting good and it gets better. Delphine Carter, thank you so much, man, for such a rich conversation. This is amazing. Look, if you're a woman in the workplace, even a woman entrepreneur, what all the preneurs, listen, share this information.
I love that so much better than side hustle. Side hustle sounds like you're just kind of doing something, but that one sounds very intentional and as serious as it should.
As it should, because we're building companies. I want to backtrack because that's exactly what you were doing when you built this company. If I read right, you were working full time, raising your kids, going through a divorce, and building Boulo. Please talk about that.
It was definitely one of the toughest times in my life. It was exhausting, but it was also fulfilling. It was, I've never felt more intentional about what I was doing. I'd sit on the couch and I'd be like, oh my gosh, how am I going to find the energy to do this? And you could make it work. And I don't know, that energy would just come and you'd figure out how to get to the next step. And, I think that's the passion of following a dream. I think that's the byproduct of when I say this a lot. I went into it kicking and screaming because I was like, what am I thinking? Like, who am I to be going out and like throwing a great career away and cutting my salary? Like, this is insanity. And I heard Sarah Blakely from from Spanx say, when your dream is in this baby phase, in this tiny little phase, be careful who you share it with and maybe keep it private because people will always look out for you. People love you and they don't want you to take risks to protect you. And so I would just kind of do this privately. I would tell my kids. And then finally, like I said, it came to the moment where I was like, okay, I'm not going to stay asleep because I feel like God's speaking to me and saying that go do this. This is what you're supposed to do. That's my spiritual journey. And that's where I felt like I was supposed to go. And so I sat my kids down and said, okay, when we go to Target, it's going to look a lot different. Like we're not going to do like supermarket sweep of everything that you want. We're going to, we're cutting back and you're about to learn what this is. And I think that whole journey has poured itself into Boulo. The team is made up of women who are caregivers who have found themselves valuable as professionals and as moms and want to bring it to other people. And so that passion is just on our calls. We highlight the women that we've placed and we shout about the businesses that have said she's valuable. We want her. And it's impossible to squelch that.
That's amazing. I don't even know if you know this, how I met and connected with your team. It was one of your team members that reached out to me and we bonded over being caregivers. Like she reached out to me for a recruiting situation with our company and we start talking. And I said, I don't know how we got down that road, but it's like, yeah, I'm a caregiver. She's like, yeah, me too. And I was like, oh my gosh, this exists. Like, a company, a mission like this. And this has been such an exploratory journey for me. Like, I didn't know that I could work like this, that there were other people like me trying to work like this. And then they said, oh my gosh, you have to meet Delphine. Oh my gosh, you have to learn more. I was like, please tell me more. And I felt like I met my people. I said, this is my tribe. Because we are going through this in an isolated way and no one's talking about these issues, which is why this episode is so deeply important, to give a face and a voice to women who have amazing skill sets and are not given opportunities.
That's it. And some of it is technology. Technology is meant to scale a process. And sometimes when you use that technology to scale a process, you leave some incredible people behind. And so a lot of these women, their networks are gone because their networks are on ball fields. Their networks are in the school halls. And so they don't know how to get back in. They don't know how to get themselves surfaced to where their resumes will make it past, whatever that first leg or first stage is. And so that's what we want to do. We want to help women stay in the workforce if they choose to. We want to help them have rewarding careers. And so the next phase of Boulo is to build career pathing. So when Melissa, you put in, hey, this is my goal. I want to build an ecosystem of empowering coaches. And then that's a little specific, but then we can get data because there's so much data on, people's careers. We can get data that says, Melissa, go ask for a raise. You are already there. You have all the qualifications, but you've told us this is the money you make, and we know you could be making this. So to be the wind at their back, to ask for projects, and then also to get them support. We want to be an ecosystem to where we can help them find you, their coach. It's very difficult to find coaches. Because I don't know if you're the right one for me. And I kind of go to my friend and say, who do you use? And we're all different. We all have different needs. So the fact that you've created this ecosystem is really that step of, okay, well, I'm going to go here, tell Melissa what I have and what I want, and then she can find me somebody. But we have to have career support. Women have got to have career support, and you're just going to have to invest in it. If it doesn't come from where you're working today, you are going to have to invest in it, because I think it's what you said earlier is your activation coaching. What I loved was you help the underheard find their voice. And women are taught to be nice and quiet. Let's cross our legs at our ankles.
Yes.
And don't be too loud. And so you having a coach that helps them find their voice is just key to reaching your career goals, whatever that may be.
Mm-hmm. You know, it took me learning my value in order to articulate value. And that's why coaching, training, mentorship, advocacy in our community, in our what I call my Activation Nation, in our private coaching group, we have something called the 4 relationships, Delphine. And if you guys follow and you're in the group, you know what we're talking about. And that's mentors, coaches, sponsors, and advocates. Okay. And that it takes the 4 relationships, which we build our coaching model around those relationships. So, for those of you listening, do a checklist in your mind real quick as you're listening or watching this episode, and even drop it in the comment. If you're missing one of these, let us know. That's why we're here today. Delphine is live. You can drop your questions if you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube Live. If you're catching the replay, drop a comment and we'll know. But mentors are the long-term commitment. They're your tribe to connect the dots for you, give you wise counsel, and introduce you to their network. Sponsors, it may be the mom or the young professional, like, hey, I don't necessarily have the economic means or the know-how or what groups. And so a sponsor may literally pay for or be a benefactor for you to be in the room. Okay. A coach will hold you accountable. That's the difference in all of the relationships. All of them may have some function of coaching, but a coach is a trusted, appointed person to get you from point A to point B for your goals. The micro goals on the way to the macro big thing you want to achieve. And then finally, the advocate, which is what we're talking about today, advocating for women. The advocate is the one who will speak your name for you when you're not in the room.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah.
I love that. I love that. I came from a company that had an amazing culture two companies ago. The company's name is Daxco, and they were very intentional about pick somebody who's at a younger level. Just pick somebody and then be their advocate in the room to say, okay, well, I think Isaac would be he has these traits. We've got a new project. Can we plug him in? And you're the only one that knows Isaac's great traits, or this young intern that just came in. You've got to speak up for these people, because if not, it's a shame, but it's really the people whose name keeps being repeated that get the opportunities. And so make sure you pick somebody and just keep saying their name.
Pick somebody, even if it's one person, and keep saying their name. Oh, Delphine, I really hope, guys, if you're watching this and you caught that, show her some love in the comments, please. Like, run over to Boulo. Like, after this episode, though, run over to their site and join this movement. So I want to tell you, in my preparation for my conversation with you, I learned another new word, right? Called returnships. Herinsight.com says, and this is from an article that dropped August of 2020, still relevant given the conditions at the time that we're doing this episode. This says 15 companies offering returnships, return to work programs, creating We See You technology. And I was like, oh, this sounds like Delphine, and this sounds like Boulo. So returnships, is that a word you're familiar with, or even just return to work programs? Educate on us on that a little bit.
Yeah. So the purpose of a return to work program is they're typically under the umbrella of a larger, maybe an enterprise size company. And the premise is we can bring women who have been out. Typically you have to be out of work. It's company to company. Typically you're out of work 3 years or more. And so it's women who've been out of work and have reskilled, upskilled, done a last mile certification, done something to kind of bring any dated skills back up into current. But there's a lot that goes on in an office if you've been out of it that you need guidance on. It's the office politics, just Slack. I don't know if this little chat
Yeah,
tool that everybody
all of
uses.
it.
Zoom, like what's the etiquette on Zoom? How do you do all this? And so what they basically do is they take these cohorts, they train them up on how to just get back into the workforce beyond on the job training. It is more like the culture of the company and how to reintegrate into a professional world. And then at the end of the cohort, you typically have the opportunity to stay full-time with the company, and then restart your career that way. So it's a great entry. It's a guided entryway. There's an incredible nonprofit I just learned about this week. It was founded by Matt Bloomberg, who's now the CEO of Bolster. It's called pathforward.org. And so enterprise companies can go to them, and it's a nonprofit now. And then they have all of this collateral that you can take, and they'll train you on and implement. So you don't have to create these programs. There's plenty of fabulous programs out there that you can just be trained to implement. But it really is a great way to get women back into their careers. And the statistics are very strong about how quickly women recover their original salary and their original career level versus if you just returned without a returnship.
That is important. Guys, make sure you look up these resources because what you just said, that's that equity part, right? Equitable opportunity to return back to your salary or beyond at a faster rate with the help of these programs.
So women that so this is where we start talking about generational change. Women that step out of the workforce typically take, if they've been out for 2 years, they typically take, I think it's like a 30% pay cut when they return. What happens is the daughters of women who have not returned to work, they as well have pay gaps. And so it's a generational effect that keeps happening. The other thing that's shocking is this is very much a parent issue because the pay gap between a female and a mom is greater than the pay gap between a female and a man. And so you realize the effect, daughters get affected by their moms not being in work. People see somebody differently once they become a mom. You just start realizing there's all these pieces that definitively point to caregiving, to the problem companies have accepting that you have another priority that is incredibly important to you. And it's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So returnships are really great programs. A lot of enterprise companies have them, probably definitely in Atlanta. So really, if you just Google returnships, their lists will start popping up. But there's a lot of opportunities.
Oh, I'm still stuck at that statistic. Like, so you mean to tell me, let's sum this all up with a bow, right? You mean to tell me it is good for families when mothers are seen working in their careers and their purpose, whether at work or at home? And you can do it from home too?
Right. Okay. Right. Like imagine the effect on even just a son seeing his mom, be on a call and that power stance and just like owning it. Imagine the effect that these things have. So it's just, there's a lot that can happen by giving women opportunities. Frankly, our economy cannot handle having 1.5 wage earners out of the system and buying things, going to Target. So we have got to bring women back into the workforce, and we have got to help them with caregiving, daycare, childcare, something when they return.
You set me up on a tee here to just simply ask, how are you offering solutions for women to return to work. Tell us more specifically about the
Yeah.
services you provide.
Right.
And there's another arm to what you're doing on providing diversity for women on boards and just all of it. Tell us about how you're positioning
Yeah.
women in this space.
So that profile is the first step where
Mhm.
we layer your resume with a 360-degree profile. We have a phone
Mhm.
call with you to help you get to that, get the words right, potentially, if you didn't have those words. And then we go to the businesses, our customers, our clients. We've started focusing very much on small to medium-sized businesses under 500 employees. And the reason we do that is because they are able to be more nimble, and it's a less intimidating office space for the women to get back into.
Mhm.
And so we have intentionally stuck with especially tech companies because they really understand being agile and being innovative. And so we match, we work these small businesses and say, okay, are you willing to do these things? Are you willing to give her goals versus say you have to be here for 40 hours? Are you willing to let her go home at 3 and then start working? And so we start educating the company so that when the women, you can't just educate the women, you've got to educate the companies as well. And so we tackle it from both sides and become the mediator. And again, as soon as we have our next growth pivot, then we'll be able to offer the career pathing. That is the part I'm incredibly excited about, which is helping women understand what do you need to get where you want to go, or you may already be there. Find your voice, like what you're doing.
I love that bridge. Thank you for building that bridge. It is so important. You said something, you can't just educate the women, educate the companies as well.
So as a mom, what's funny is when we do marketing, we find a lot of moms. What's funny is they also say, hey, I told my husband about you. He works for so-and-so. And so as a mom, you can educate in your little cocktail hour or whenever you're, having just your wine with friends and, they're business people, help educate them on how strong you are, how much value you bring, and get them to start shifting their view on flexibility.
How do you do that? Now I know my personal story. I just was crazy or bold enough to ask for it. But that is a big deal right now, Delphine, that some companies say, hey, you know what? We see flex work now as a pivotal part of our business model. We're willing to. Some not so much. So how do you make a case for that? What's some backstory to help us out?
Yeah, it's funny because Google just pivoted back. They had said we want people in the office, and I think it was on the 5th of May, they announced they're going hybrid. And so, that's a tough question. It's if you yourself are going to go in and try to change people's minds, I think it's asking a lot of questions of not in an aggressive way, but in a what's it like for moms at your office? Well, I don't know. Oh, have you asked them? What do you think it's like right now? And really making them aware that there's a difference for a caretaker. And then, what we say to the businesses is measure goals, like start putting KPIs down, goals and objectives down. And then you can easier get into that flexibility because you don't feel like you have to have that tight control. And I think it's just a dialogue. I don't know on the social side that there's an equation of conversations.
Yeah.
It's really just asking the whys. Why?
Which means we have to keep having the conversations and keep
Yes.
talking.
Yeah. It's just got to stay being a thing in the room. Just like, women of color, it's just got to stay being a thing in the room and don't let it die.
Then don't let it die. So listen, that's why I said beyond Women's History Month, Women's International Day, Women's Pay Day, we got a lot of days out there. It's beyond a day or a micro moment. It's a macro movement for women to be a part of the diversity conversation, to be seen as a solution. So that was one thing I want to touch on before we wrap up. I read somewhere on your website just about challenging organizations to see women in leadership or as a part of executive boards. Can you tell us maybe more about that part and
Yeah.
how you support women in leadership as a part of executive board representation?
So we in that offering, what we do, what we were hearing in the market was we need women on our board, but they're not in our network. They're not ready for it.
Hmm.
All the same reasons that you don't have diversity and color on boards is
Hmm.
they're not out there. And it's like, yeah, they're out there.
Hmm.
You're just not looking. And so
Hmm.
in order to get women to get on public boards, they need to have board experience. So our thought was, let's help small to medium sized businesses. A lot of tech companies, once you take an investment, you've got to have board members. Let's help those businesses find these women that can bring expertise to the table, and that gets the women board experience. And it helps these companies realize, see, she was sitting out there. You just needed to have the right people to show you.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Delphine, thank you for the remarkable work that you're doing, for taking your leap to do it afraid, activating your own voice, and creating space for flex work for women. Guys, like I said, the mission just couldn't be any better. I absolutely am proud to say that I shared space with you to help women with professional achievement without compromise. That sounds like activated living to me. Thank you so much for being here with me today. You're
Oh,
awesome.
thank you so much. Has been a great time. Seriously.
Well, guys, listen, if you want to learn more about Delphine Carter and her amazing team that advocates for women at work for flexible work opportunities, make sure you go to their website at boulosolutions.com. There's a wealth of resources there on their page, as well as videos to educate you on how they can serve you as a leader who is over a team supervising and looking to diversify with women in your organization, or if you're a potential employee that wants to get back to work flexibly. Guys, I've been joined today with Delphine Carter. Make sure you check out my show notes because I took a lot of them, gems and jewels that she shared today with stats, resources, and more to help you get back to work. If this was helpful to you, don't be selfish. Hit that subscribe button. Also share it and leave a review. I want to keep bringing you more great content like this. Don't go anywhere this season because we're just getting started. It's the series and season of becoming. It's my own personal journey of becoming, and I'm inviting you to join me through these rich conversations. Thank you for joining the Activation Hour. We're tuned in every Friday evening, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. We'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys. If you love this episode, please make sure to subscribe, turn on your notifications, and share with a friend. Also, if you really want to get behind the scenes, go now to our YouTube channel at The Activation Hour. The link is found in the show notes for you to actually see my guest live and in person, and to even catch more details of our conversation behind the scenes. Stay connected and join us next time for The Activation Hour, Purpose at Work and in the World.